Welcome to the fourth round of the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series here on iRacing Live, brought to you by RaceBot. We are here at Phoenix tonight, fourth round as mentioned, and we are currently in qualifying. 2 minutes to go. Bradley Walters currently provisionally on pole at 18.925, followed by Holgate 18.939. So very close front two, still 1 minute 45 seconds to go. In qualifying, Tim Doyle, short oval specialist here in the IndyCar, he's currently fourth, which, Randy, we saw him at Auto Club 2 weeks ago, and he complained about his qualifying, but if he's in the top five, look out. He is exceptionally fast on these short ovals.
Yeah, Phoenix is a very quick lap here. Bradley Walters, as he said, currently fastest with a 9.25. Holgate up close. It's going to be a tight one. We've seen a lot of people drive laps here, or a lot of laps here in this practice session. Jonathan Goke, and as well as Danley Yench, almost put in a full race worth of practice coming into this, Aaron.
Yeah, we had several drivers actually go over 200. Tonight's race, 150 miles, 150 laps here. But we had several drivers go over 200 laps as Marco Aurelio Brazil now takes to the track on his qualifying run. We'll see if he can get a lap in. Less than 45 seconds to go, and then we will know where we are going to stand in qualifying. Qualifying rules here kind of different. The dogleg is open. Typically, you'll see on this oval that cars aren't allowed to cut. Now, when we get to the race, Randy, the yellow line on the back straightaway is going to be out of bounds. Race control is going to be watching that like a hawk, but in qualifying, it's open game. So Marco's first lap, 19.09. Let's see if he can improve on this second lap as he comes through 3 and 4.
Yeah, he's going to get a good run here off. Oh, and by a good run, I mean he's going to hit the wall. So I believe his second.
Curse?
I do believe his second lap was slower.
Expert analysis there. That was a good run into the wall, but that is going to qualify him P9. That does end qualifying, so we will run through your starting lineup, which Bradley Walters in over the course of the week in the test sessions they had was quickest. He didn't show that in the warm-up, but he does take pole by a mere 14,000. So Bradley Walters pole here tonight, 18.925. Tim Holgate, who's won 2 out of 3 races, will start on the outside. Second row, Joe Branch and Nathan Bookbinder. Third row, Tim Doyle, which look for him to be a contender. Also, Niall Ander, a great qualifying run on the outside. Fourth row, the ever-aggressive Jonathan Goke, expect him to come through the field. And Paul Jennings. Fifth row, Marco Aurelio Brazil and Andreas Eek. Following in the following row, Andrew Kinsella and TJ Masick. And the rest of the field going to scroll on your screen. And Randy, 150 laps here. Looking at the fuel numbers, we're looking at, if you run full rich, you're going to burn about just over 0.3 of a gallon a lap. That's going to put the fuel window at around 45 laps. This race, 150 laps. If you can stretch it, you may be able to do this in just 2 stops.
Yeah, that's of course if it does stay green, it's going to be interesting to see. Traffic's going to play a big part here. We saw that both in the real race as well as the official series this past week at Phoenix. Traffic's a big deal, a lot of aero push, but like you said, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of people try to stretch this field out to 50 laps to try to two-stop it. Maybe gambling for if the race does stay green. We've seen all this, these past couple weeks, fields tend to get spread out here, not a lot of side-by-side racing. So if we're going to get a full green flag run here in this championship, this might be the round where it happens.
Another aspect of it, of course, you mentioned gamble. Vegas just 3 hours up the road, if even that, but these tires fall off about a second a lap. So if you short pit, you're going to be a second faster. Now, we talk about the dirty air, and we're going to be talking about it all race. But with fresh tires, you are going to be able to cut through that air and make position. So really, if you're stuck in traffic, do you take that gamble and short pit? You lose about 1.5 laps by pitting. So there's a gamble. Is it worth it as the field starts to roll off?
I definitely think short pitting right now, if you're towards the back of this field, is going to be something you want to do. I think if I'm a driver, I do not expect this race to go green all the way to the end, and for that reason, I would definitely say that short pitting, if you're, maybe someone like Jonathan Goat, Paul Jennings, maybe even Tim Doyle, someone who has generally a very good race pace but may not be the best qualifier, get yourself up there to the front. I'd definitely do a short pit.
As the field, I believe, is going to go green this time. The field not very well aligned. Let's see if they do get alignment off of turn 4. There they go. They do get doubled up. Pace car pulls in, and the 4th round of the iAdvance Motorsport Indy Elite Series is green.
Definitely a good, clean start there by our leader, Bradley Walters. Gets himself about a 2 to 3 car advantage going into turn number 1, and in some ways that'll help P2 of Tim Holgate, as we already have a yellow flag.
A yellow flag, lap 1, and it looks like Niles Anders is going to be the cause of that. We'll get a replay momentarily, but Randy, looking at it right now, might be a combination of the apron, might be a combination of cold tires, or it could have been an apron, or answer D, all of the above.
Yeah, he got a little bit loose before he got onto that apron. He was almost able to save it, but when he did clip that apron, it brought that back into that car around. Definitely interesting to see. Normally we talked about the dirty air making the cars tight. However, that also does get air off that rear wing. Possibly maybe got Niles loose a little bit as well, but definitely an unfortunate incident early on for Niles. Going to shuffle him to the back, but he didn't hit anything. Not going to have any damage though, which is good news.
And looking at our fuel window, as we talked about, 50 laps would be stretching it. If I'm in the back third of the field, I'm going to pit right now, coming to 1 to green. Why not?
Yeah, if you're at the end, and in fact Niles is going to. He's obviously going to need tires after that. If you're at the back of the field, come in, get yourself a little bit of fuel. Obviously, no one's tires will be beat, but your tires will technically be newer. I'm technically correct, which is the best kind of correct. But yeah, I think if you're in the back now, hey, you might as well pit, help you out with some fuel later on in the race.
This is the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series, which, based in Indianapolis, iAdvance Motorsports is one of the top simulator training facilities in motorsports. Built by IndyCar driver Darren Manning, the iAdvance simulator features a 20-foot long and 8-foot tall screen that wraps 180 degrees around an actual Indy Lights tub. iAdvance uses the latest hardware and software to be as close to the real thing as possible, along with the best pedal assembly, steering wheel, and force feedback money can buy, making it the perfect tool to effectively and accurately train race car drivers and sim racers alike. Visit iAdvanceMotorsports.com to sign up today, and when you sign up, you can get $20 off with the promo of Elite. So, this should be a quick yellow, no cars a lap down. Let's see, are the lights off on our pace car? Nope, I believe we are. 2 to go this time, but as a driver, Randy, you come into a race, you're waiting for that green, you go green, and immediately when you go yellow, it can throw your rhythm off.
Yeah, you spend really the whole, after qualifying and the gridding and the whole pace lap, you really are kind of fighting that adrenaline buildup, getting ready for the race. And you finally get that whole release when the green flag drops and you start, basically all that adrenaline and all that effort you've been putting in for weeks and weeks practicing. All that effort goes into, turn 1, nailing turn 1, staying around the field. And then immediately, literally seconds after the race goes green, you get brought out yellow. And that just kind of shakes you up because now you still have all that pent up energy, but you're still sitting there. You're going to be sitting around behind the pace car for 4 to 5 laps. And like you said, could affect your rhythm, could definitely affect concentration.
One factor here, as we take a look at the weather conditions, most of the testing here this week was a little bit warmer. It's cool here today. Air temperature 71 degrees, track temperature just 82, which here at Phoenix you can easily see 120 or higher. Winds, not really going to be a factor, 6 to 7 miles an hour. So don't expect the winds to play any factor, but the cooler temperatures may be, you see what could have been with Niles Anders' issue, a little bit loose on the first laps. Lights are out. We are half a mile from going back to racing. Randy, we really haven't talked about the track yet, but when we do get green, the aero push in turn 2, I think that's going to be our trouble spot.
Yeah, the aero push coming off of 1 and 2, and really, through 3 and 4 as well. I mean, I'm really expecting these outside retaining walls and these safer barriers to get a lot of work here this week, rather.
Let's see if we can get a green flag lap. The field has not seen turn 3 under green yet. The iRacing pace car makes the turn in. Wait for it, and there they go. Green flag back in the air. Walters leads him down to turn 1.
Again, a good jump for him, giving himself himself a good gap to Holgate, and really a good gap from Joe Branch to Holgate as well. Really from third on back is where we're seeing cars that are really bunched up. Do turn one clean, we're going to hit turn 3 for the first time under green here.
So about 3 car lengths, and what I've noticed, these tires fall off after about 3 laps. So if you're going to make a move, you're going to have to make a move quickly, as you're going to see Holgate go a little bit higher. You're searching for fresh air. They talk about a wake. Imagine the dirty air really being sort of like a boat on a water. And the wake that they're producing, you're going to want to, as we see the crossover, that is, well, the point I was trying to make. You got to cross at the right time. Holgate to the inside, Holgate to the point.
Yeah, Holgate doesn't look like he's gonna be looking to save fuel here, like we were talking about earlier. Which really, if we're gonna be watching anyone to save gas, it's gonna be Holgate. He seems to have absolutely no want to do that. Which, I mean, you can't really blame him with the amount of air push you get in the dirty air. You can't really sit behind someone and save gas like you can at a track like, let's say, Auto Club, like we saw a couple weeks ago, which turned into a fuel economy race. So really, not surprising to see Holgate, go away from his old ways and really go hard going into turn 1 there.
Yeah, Holgate typically, if you have followed any of the IndyCar stuff here on iRacing, Tim Holgate is really the epitome of a strategist. So often you will see him sit in second and save fuel, and he's got me saying it's never too early to start thinking about saving fuel, but tonight, well, he's leading the parade here at Phoenix. Bradley Walters in second, Joe Branch third, Tim Doyle fourth, and Jonathan Goke rounds out the top 5. Really, we are single file. Closest battle right now is the battle for 9th place. Andrew Kinsella, TJ Masick, Andreas Eek, and Joe Flanagan all nose to tail. And Randy, when you have 3 cars in front of you, that just enunciates the aero push that you may experience.
Yeah, this is a 5-car train. Like you said, 1 car leaves the wake. 5 cars opens the air like it's the Red Sea, and that leading car is Moses. So there's going to be no arrow on these cars behind. It's going to be rough for them to get by. I'm definitely expecting them to just really play it safe here in these early stages. With as much air, this is really a very, very aero-dependent track, probably more so than a lot of the other tracks on the schedule. Don't really want to push it and get any early damage that you have to then pit for will be really, really slow. But looking back out front, Tim Holgate able to stretch the gap, and we talk about it in a lot of weeks, Aaron. We'll mention cars that that can work well in traffic, and we saw it at Auto Club. Christopher Demerit, he got himself out to an early lead at Auto Club, but when he ended up getting passed by Holgate, or when he caught slower traffic, he was really, really slow. And so a big talking point was how cars worked in dirty air. I think this week, in order to win, you're going to need to get a car that can get out front and can basically just run away.
And that works, Randy, until lap traffic. You're going to have a car that can make it. And we'll see how, well, sporting the lappers are. You're not going to want to go a lap down. We saw James Hinchcliffe last night do an expert job at staying on the lead lap early on in that race. And as Holgate comes by, well, if the cars that are on the tail end of the lap are about to go a lap down, really, you want to be a nice guy and let them go, but you're in a race all your own.
Yeah, you simply can't just let anyone go, whether it's for the lead or not. Like you said, we saw with James Hinchcliffe, and we actually have a yellow.
Try to find the incident, and it is in turn 3. So yellow flag, second one comes out here early, and it's going to be Joe Flanagan is going to be in trouble, and looks like he may have had a little bit of assistance into the safer wall, Randy.
Yeah, this was back for this battle for P10 that we were talking about a couple laps before. The 7... What car was that? Was that TJ Masick, I believe, got inside
Austin
of them?
Espity.
Was it Espity?
Which this yellow is really not going to be good for him because he did pit on the 1 to go. So the last person in this race that wanted a yellow was him, because he was going to be on the 2-stop strategy. And now with this yellow, well, that's going to change everything. But that's just a classic Phoenix crash there. Car goes to the inside, car on the outside, thinks there's a little bit more room. Car on the inside thinks there's a little bit more room, and they sort of meet in the middle. And currently, I think everybody's going to be coming down pit road.
Yeah, there's no reason really to not pay here. We got about 10-15 laps here on these tires. and that's probably worth about 3/4 of a second just in lap times alone. But like you said, very traditional Phoenix incident. Turn 3, I think, is where we will see a lot of the incidents here in terms of incidents involving other cars. Turn 3 really, on entry it narrows up, and you'll see some people come down on cars that are trying to make passes. However, coming off of 3, I'd expect to see cars who are on the inside push back up and possibly hit cars that are on the outside. So that's definitely something to watch here as the rest of this race pans out.
Well, pit stops taking place.
You got a spin on pit lane.
Tim Holgate does lead, and of all places you don't want to spin, Tim Miller having incidents on pit road, and anytime you're in an IndyCar doing a 3-point turn, well, your evening is not going all that well.
Yeah, that was Niles Anders. Tim Miller is simply turning into his pit box, and he either slowed up or Niles sped up. I would assume that he slowed down in front of Niles, but yeah, Niles got into the back of him and he got into his pit lane, turned him around. That's something we don't typically see in these races, Aaron.
Well, I think Niles Anders will need a new front wing, and Tim Miller will get a new rear wing, and I think everybody's going to be okay, but for Miller, going to lose some spots. Tim Doyle, great pit stop. He goes up to P2. So, and I mentioned it, he is a short oval specialist, and if anybody's going to beat Holgate here tonight, which Holgate has won 2 of 3 and has been the hottest IndyCar driver in pretty much any series over the past, 2 years, can Tim Doyle do it?
I mean, Tim Doyle is definitely good, and we talk about Tim Doyle basically week after week. Tim Doyle is that driver that never really qualifies well, but always moves himself up to the front. We're already seeing that. He's moved himself up 3 positions from P5 that he had in qualifying. Is currently really the big mover on track. I think the only person who's moved up more spots is Michael Peters, qualified, or actually didn't set a time. Started 20th, is currently running in 13th. Austin Espity as well, 19th, moved himself up to 12th. But, Tim Doyle, he's a short track specialist. He's really, really experienced. He's a better racer than he is qualifier. If anyone has the pace to beat Holgate right now, or anyone else, Tim Doyle, he's always a factor.
Another driver not to count out. He has been on a roll ever since winning the 16th Street Indy 500. Joe Branch, he's running P3, and he has really picked his game up over the past year. Typically, he was a great finisher, but you would not see him in the top 5 till late, as we are half a lap from going back to green. But real quick, Joe Branch, great showing here so far.
Definitely is, as we're getting ready to complete this caution lap on this 1.022 mile road course. Got to make sure we get it right. They're heading down into turn 3 now, Aaron. What do you think we're going to have to watch for on this restart?
Well, if people in the middle of the pack, I don't think we're going to see Holgate and Doyle really fight, but middle of the pack, you're going to have to get the positions while you can. The pace car about to be turning in. There he goes. Holgate waits, hits it. We are green. Once again, Holgate gets a very good launch, about 5 car lengths going into turn 1.
Yeah, we've seen this every restart so far. The leader gets himself a very early
gets loose, Randy. We're going to go 3 wide.
3 wide into 2. That narrows up quick. Big mover there is Bradley Walters. I believe he's going to get both past Doyle and Joe Branch, as well as Jonathan Ghost going to get around Joe Branch as well. So, a huge loser off of that.
Yeah, almost a carbon copy of Niles Anders, except Tim Doyle did manage to save it. Bradley Walters 4th to 2nd, doing a Ryan Hunter Ray impression on the outside and going through the middle. What a restart for Walters, and all of this excitement. Well, nothing exciting for Tim Holgate. He stretched out to almost a 1-second lead, so he's wanting them behind to just keep having excitement, Randy.
Yeah, and in some ways, actually, if I'm Bradley Walters, having Tim Holgate a second ahead of me this early on in the run is exactly what I want to see. That basically gets me clean air. I'm going to be able to now sit in front of Tim Doyle. It's going to be very, very difficult for him to get past me, and I'm going to be able to save my tires. Where in order for Tim Doyle to be able to keep up with me, he's going to have to use them up in the dirty air. I think if I'm Bradley Walters right now, having Tim Holgate that far ahead, exactly what I want to see.
Yeah, often in racing, you're going to hear us say, well, you want to be on the attack. You want to try to get close, but once you get around 8/10, you do start getting into that wake, that dirty air. So saving your tires, well, if you're a second behind, you can gain time here pitting in. You can gain 2, 3, maybe even more seconds with the good good out. So really, he's got himself in a position where he actually mirrored the leader's lap time that time. So yeah, you're right. That is one aspect that you want to save that right front, as we do have a battle for third. Goat to the inside of Doyle, thinks better of it. And when you do try to make a pass, Randy, if you don't get it done, well, it can take you 2, 3, or even more laps to get up. And, well, if you have a car behind you, instead of being the car making the pass, you can very easily get past.
Yes, setting up a pass here at Phoenix takes several laps in order to get it done. It's a short lap, and even though, with these high speeds, we talk about the air of push, really don't have enough straight line speed here to really get a draft in the big hole in the air. So really for John Goke, if every time he makes a move, it's essentially a gamble, because if he can't get it done, he's going to lose ground to Tim Doyle for the rest of the, for better 2 or 3 laps, as he tries to then, has to then spend another 2 to 3 laps trying to get the move done. And we're going to see him again, maybe look on the inside of turn 1 here, Aaron. He thinks better of it. He just sits in behind and just runs single file.
This shows it takes laps to build up the pass. He's going to go to the inside of turn 3. Does Doyle give it to him? And that is a very heads-up driving there. He knew, Doyle, keep it out of the wall, hitting high, but you can't get around on the outside. They're going to maintain side-by-side through turn 1. Goat gets a little tight on the inside, and Doyle's going to maintain the position. Branch now going to fight on the outside. What an incredible battle for P3, P4, P5, side-by-side through turn 3, and is Branch going to take the spot on the outside? It takes bravery to make the pass on the outside, and yes, he is. So we thought Goat was going to take third. Well, he didn't take third. He actually lost fourth, and now he's going to come into contest with Nathan Bookbinder, who's going to maybe look to the inside and thinks better of it, and rightfully so. But Randy, that shows that you got to time your maneuver, and when you pull it, you have to finish it, or you're going to go backwards.
Yeah, the thing here about about IndyCar, the Phoenix, is that turn 3, if you're up on the outside, if there's a car ahead, that car ahead is going to run right next to the yellow line throughout 3. So if you're on the up on the outside trying to pass someone on the outside, or who's on the inside, you're actually going to pinch that person down into the dirty area, and you can get yourself a run off of 3 and use that draft down the front straightaway. And that's exactly what Joe Branch did to get by John Goke. We actually almost saw Nathan Bookbinder do it to Goke going through turn 3, but he just wasn't quite close enough to get the move done. But that was actually just an exceptional turn of events for Joe Branch. Got himself that position. Tim Doyle as well got himself out of that early pressure, and he's got himself a 7th or 8th tenths gap now to the car ahead. He's going to be in clean air as well, and like we were talking about with the gap between Bradley to Holgate and being able to save tires, Doyle's going to be able to do the exact same thing.
Well, our leader now in lap traffic, so let the lapping begin, but we really haven't talked about the track, as Holgate does get held up in turn 3, and traffic here, you can have a 2 or 3 second lead, and it can vanish instantly depending on where you, and we go yellow. So third caution comes out here, and it is going to be Niles Anders bringing out our second caution. And odd incident here. Something broke on that race car.
Yeah, that was really weird. He was about 80 miles per hour off the pit. Oh, he got into the wall going into one, I think. Which I think he may have done that and may have just begun pulling off. I don't know if he broke something,
Two
but
separate incidents here, Randy, as we also had an incident off of turn 4 right as when the yellow came out. Goke washed up in the dirty air off of turn 4 and hit the wall, pancaked it, came off, and unfortunately Nathan Bookbinder absolutely nowhere to go. So an unfortunate turn of events for Bookbinder. And when it comes to the dirty air here, and so often in the IndyCar now, you have to react to the car before it really reacts. You have to know you're in trouble before you know you're in trouble, because if you lift out, if you get into the gray when you're already pushing out, it's too late.
Yeah, I think that's basically what happened there. Goke just got tight and either didn't realize he was going to get tight or just thought the grip was there, and he really just drove that car right up into the outside wall. I mean, that was, Bookbender was just an innocent bystander.
Everybody in the pits minus 2 cars. Andrew Kinsella stays out on the lead lap, and of course lap cars ineligible to pit, so Tim Miller could get the wave around. So pit stops taking place here under our third caution. Lap 39 is what we're working, and looks like we are going to have a race off of pit road, and we may have a lead change. I think Tim Doyle nailed the pit stop. So, wow, this race can be won or lost in the pits, and Tim Doyle may get his first taste of clean air.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome for Tim Doyle. This will be the first lead change we've seen since Tim managed to get by Bradley Walters in the early stages of this race. And having Tim Doyle out in front, that's kind of a scary proposition, but it's going to be interesting to see. Holgate's been able to stretch a gap on he was able to stretch a gap on this green flag run. It's going to be interesting to see if that was because of the clean air or if Holgate's just that quick.
Well, Tim Doyle won't necessarily have clean air as Andrew Kinsella does stay on the racetrack, which, looking at the fuel window, well, it sort of makes sense to stay out because you're still going to have to make the same amount of stops. But the question is the clean air worth the tire fall off? That's the balance. That's the gamble. What do you think?
It's going to be tough. I'm not exactly sure when or if Andrew is pit. If Andrew's not pit at all, that's going to be a very, very scary proposition for him out there on the old tires. Even if he does have the clean air, it's going to be tough. Certainly not as bad with if he was on in the dirty air, it'd be much worse. With him having the clean air, it's actually not going to be the worst thing in the world for him. But it's going to be tough out there. Tim's definitely fast. Well, the Tim and Tim are both quick. So, I mean, he's going to be getting hounded really, really on here, Aaron.
Bradley Walters going to be 4th, Joe Branch 5th. As we run through your top 10, Marco Aurelio Brazil, who just barely avoided the crash between Bookbinder and Goki, runs 6th. Paul Jennings 7th, Andreas Ake 8th, Ryan Heater 9th, and Michael Peters rounds out the top 10. Let's see, we do get the one to go, so Tim Miller's going to get the wave around. Of course, a lap car can't lead the field to green, which Tim Miller's going to hope for a yellow here shortly to get fresh tires, but it's going to be interesting to see if the gamble of Andrew Kinsella works out. I think if he can stay within the top 7, top 8 for 15 laps, I'm going to say the gamble works, but he could fall like a boat anchor here, Randy.
Yeah, what's really gonna be the deciding factor here is how long he's able to stay ahead of Tim Doyle and Tim Holgate with his clean air. If he can't stay ahead and he gets shuffled down, all these guys have new tires, and like you said, he's gonna fall like a rock.
Well, we've seen fresh tires first lap. Very, very sketchy through 1 and 2. Car gets very free. What's it like for used tires? Andrew Kinsella's about to find out as we are back to racing here at Phoenix to start lap 42. And, these drivers are holding their breath. Andrew Kinsella gets through turn 1. He takes it nicely and lots of spacing, which I think the drivers are conscious now of just how free the cars are. So really at this point, there's no real advantage. Joe Branch going to try to take 4th on the inside of Bradley Walters side by side through 3 and 4, which before that yellow came out, Randy, I was going to make the point that in the reconfiguration, this track does have a little bit of progressive banking.
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, Aaron, but with Tim Doyle's already gotten by Andrew Kinsella, and Tim Holgate is as well. Kinsella already shuffled back to turn 3. We were talking about it in the early stages. New tires are at their best in the first couple laps. Holgate and Doyle pounced.
And very good there, and still battle for 4th and 5th side by side. The banking here is progressive. Turns 1 and 2, 10 on the bottom, 11 on the top, but turns 3 and 4 looking at 8 or 9 and 1 degree. May not sound like much, but that is why Joe Branch is maintaining that position on the outside from Bradley Walters, and Andrew Kinsella is loving the side-by-side racing behind him because the more laps that get put on these tires, the harder it is to gain. But, you can see the run. Joe Branch getting on Kinsella. Not going to make a move this time. He's going to have to set him up. Staying right in the tire track's going to really not be good. Get the draft off the corner, pop to the inside, and Joe Branch is going to be through for P3, and he may bring Walters with him, and indeed he does. And Kinsella, he knows what's up. He knows he has older tires. There's no reason to try to block right here.
Yeah, he's not running very, really too aggressive. He's not fighting with anyone. He's taking his track. He's taking what's rightfully his, but he's not fighting anyone. But like we were saying before we went green, on these old tires, if he wasn't able to keep that clean air, he was just going to drop. And really, he's already losing a lot of ground to Paul Jennings, who's currently P6. If he gets an early yellow, this strategy move could really, really work out in his favor in terms of fuel. If we don't get an early yellow, well, exactly what's been happening will happen over the entire course of this run.
Oh, well, we were watching that battle for fourth. Tim passed Tim. Holgate back to the point. Doyle slots into second, and, well, right now, 0.3 of a second is the margin. And, well, in this case, we talked about the gamble. With no pressure from behind right now, well, the gap from first to second is about the gap from second to third. Do you actually want to fall back a little to save the right front, or do you want to stay as close as you can?
I think it could go either way. Right now it's so early that I think, staying close to Holgate, if I'm Tim Doyle, I definitely want to stay within about 2 seconds of Tim Holgate. You definitely don't want to let him just run away with it with the early stages. But granted, at the same time, we might see yellows. I think, it's certainly not worth it for Tim Doyle to kill his tires just to catch up to Tim Holgate. But you definitely don't want to let Holgate get away. So I think Tim Doyle, he's experienced enough. I think he'll make a better decision than I would.
Well, every race so far this season has gone to fuel mileage, and that is what we really, well, right now as it stands, if we go green the rest of the way, we're going to see 2 more stops. Closest battle on the racetrack right now, battle for P5, 6, 7, 8. Marco Aurelio Brazil may have just tapped the wall, and he goes wide out of 2, so he may have actually conked the wall off of 4. That car might be off the pace just a little bit. But we're seeing once we get about 8, 9 laps into a run, Randy, that's when these tires start to fall off. And if you haven't been, well, proactive on your in-car adjustments, you can, well, as Goke found out, find yourself out of this race in a hurry.
Yeah, if you're not using that weight jacker, if you're not using those anti-roll bars, and if your line isn't tidy enough, yeah, you can really struggle in this dirty air, and you can clip that outside wall. And sometimes you can get away with it here. As we're watching currently the number 29 car, that's going to be TJ Mazik's currently a fight for the P number 10, 11, 12 here. 3-car train here from TJ Mazik, Ryan Heater, and Danley Ench. This, I believe, is currently the closest train on track. Everyone else, Aaron, certainly seems like they're letting themselves get spread out. They just want to get themselves clean air. They want to keep care of their tires.
Well, I know. After I say this, it's probably going to happen, but I want to see green flag pit stops here. The strategy. Really, this track, at some tracks, the strategy is straightforward. But with the tire fall off here, you really have to have maybe 3 or 4 strategies, much like what you would see a football team have 3 or 4 different plays to run on a 3rd and short. Do you short pit? Do you run the full fuel run? You have to look at where everybody is on the track. How close? Are cars really battling? Also, are you going to come out with a clean track? These drivers were practicing green flag pit stops in warm-up, and it's about, wherever you are, you're going to lose about 1.25 to 1.5 laps. So, really, do you run the full fuel, or do you not? Right now, I don't think we know that answer.
Well, considering that you have to hit that lap 50 mark really to be able to make it. And our last yellow came out on lap 39. And let's be honest, I don't think anyone is going to make 11 laps of fuel here
no.
running that light. Running not full trim. I think right now you might as well run full rich, go as fast as you can, because 11 laps, that's going to be impossible to make up. However, if we do get a yellow, even if you've been running full rich, guess what? Everyone gets a full tank. Everyone's on the same strategy, anyways. We saw that at Indianapolis in real life a few years ago. That race that went green for like the first 150 laps. Montoya was doing a good job saving fuel in that race, but we got a late race caution. Guess what? Everyone filled up suddenly, even though Montoya was saving fuel and he was slow. Suddenly, everyone was, no one had an advantage on fuel because everyone had full tanks. Looking back out front, Tim Doyle got himself a 2-second lead. Joe Branch keeping within about 0.7 of a second, though, Aaron.
We just had almost an incident on the back straightaway between Marco Aurelio Brazil and Michael Peters. I don't think Michael Peters is going to be too pleased with that move. He tried to get to the inside of Marco Aurelio Brazil, but very reminiscent of Kanaan de Newgarden last night. Ran him to the line, and, well, let's see what this right now could turn into a very heated battle. This is the battle for P8, and TJ Mazik is joining the battle. So we have 3 cars battling for P8. the Andrew Kinsella update, the only driver on the split strategy, his strategy has worked, but Randy, if we don't get a yellow, he's going to have to come in about 15 laps earlier than anyone else. That may sound bad, but for those 15 laps later, he's going to be a second faster than the rest of the field.
Yeah, this is actually an interesting thing to think about with Andrew. Is right now, all the people who pitted were expecting them to pit around lap 85, just given what they can run on gas. With Andrew Kinsella here, he's going to have to pit somewhere around lap 70 or so. So really, that's coming up in the next 5 laps. And now, when he does pit, he will go a lap down to the leaders. However, the cars he's racing around, if he will be about a second and a half or so per lap quicker. And if they get forced to do green flag stops, he will get the undercut. So this really could work in favor for Andrew if he's able to make this work.
Andrew Yasik behind Kinsella, doing everything he can to get around. He's looked low, he's looked high, just hasn't been able to get around. And, well, obviously the tire fall off is now equal. And one of the things, well, the thing is with Kinsella, he's actually lighter on fuel, so that's another aspect of staying out, which is really can be a saving grace, as your car is going to be lighter. So as if you can stay out long enough to where everybody else falls off, well, right now he doing everything he can, except as he looks high into turn 2, not going to get it done. But wow, that run on the outside, so good. But, well, not that lap since I mentioned it, but Kinsella about 3 laps from coming in.
Yeah, it's going to be any time now we expect him to pit. And he's really, when we keep our eyes on, is actually a car behind him got into the wall, and we do have a car on pit road. That's the number 5 car of Robert Gortz. Not sure if he may be pitting for repairs or if this is a scheduled stop. It's a little early from what we were expecting in terms of strategy. I'm not, did Gortz pit on that last yellow? I'm not actually sure.
Well, it would be a little early, although if you do pit now, you are still within the 2-stop window, as Gortz is coming out of the pit. So a scheduled stop, this may be part of the short stop strategy.
Yeah, it definitely could be, and what's going to be interesting to see is how other racers react to this. Even though the fuel window is about lap 80, 85 or so, what we've been talking about, simply with the undercut, if people are expecting a green flag run, these guys out here on these older tires, compared to Gort, and actually we're getting word that Andrew Kinsella is getting ready to come in the pits now as well. With people coming in for these fresh tires, we might see a run of this entire field coming down because they don't want to stay out there on those old tires.
And our race leader is in traffic. That's Tim Holgate getting around Ryan Hayter. Took him 2 laps. Ryan Hayter did cede the position, but as we have been talking about the great battles in the middle of the field, that has allowed Tim Doyle, well, hasn't allowed him actually, it's actually cost him. He is down 2.3 seconds to the race leader of Holgate, and really, I think Doyle has a little bit more speed. And, oh, we got an O?
No, Tim Holgate's last lap in race trim, a 19.8. Everyone else is running in the 20s that I've seen. He is just out there flying. Everyone else is running low 20s with this traffic. He managed himself. I mean, he stretched 3/10 on Tim Doyle. Let's see what Tim Doyle runs on this clean air. He ran a 20.142. Doyle also has clean air as well as Holgate. It seems here on these green flags runs, Holgate just has the pace.
So we talk about tire fall off, but don't tell that to Tim Holgate. 19.7 last lap. He backs it up almost back to back. His last 2 laps, 4 1/1000ths of a second from each other, and that's why Tim Holgate has been the hottest driver. And, well, if you didn't mention his lap time, the thing about Tim Holgate is when he gets out front, I compare it to Young O, who hasn't run in a long time, but longtime followers of the IndyCar know that when Young O was in a race, us announcers, we would rarely mention his name because he would just go out front, and if it was a road course, just lap the field and we'd talk about the battle for second. Tim Holgate is getting very close to that realm.
Oh, he certainly is. He's very... And the thing is, Holgate really is kind of the full package. He's very, very good on these ovals, very good with strategy, very good at saving fuel, but he's also extraordinarily quick on the road courses, which are normally, you don't really spend as much time fighting on a road course as you might on an oval. And, the strategy, because there's no yellows, is a little bit less complicated. But the fact that he's able to still be so dominant over so many people speaks a lot, as we're actually starting to get a lot of people come down pit road here, Aaron, or getting ready to.
Well, as soon as the fuel window opens for Holgate, you don't want to go a lap down. Right now, 3.8 second lead. He would probably go a lap down to Doyle, but here's the thing. We got heavy traffic as Joe Branch is in the pit, so this could be the start. As soon as the window opens, you might want to take it because our leader is in heavy lap traffic. He's got Tim Miller, TJ Masick, Michael Peters, Marco Aurelio Brazil in front of him. So Branch now gonna have fresh tires, and let's see if that forces everybody else's hand.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing Holgate in here soon with this traffic. All this traffic, we've been talking about the dirty air all race long. That's brought him back down. We've been talking about him running 19.8s. This has brought him back down to running 20.1s, the same pace as Doyle's running. Now, granted, the fact he's able to do that in dirty air while Doyle's running those laps in clean air is still somehow absolutely miraculous. But we're definitely going to expecting to see some early pit stops from pretty much everybody here.
Well, this is going to be the good barometer as Branch has slotted out. He's 2 cars on the track behind our race leader, but this is going to show if and how much the advantage of clean tires are. Now, right now the pace Holgate is running, well, don't tell him that this track is abrasive or hard on tires because he's having none of it as he goes to the inside, makes it stick, puts TJ Masick a lap down, which will put 7 cars on the lead lap. So this race, we're now 6 laps past halfway. This race, when it goes green, goes by in an absolute flash. Joe Branch's lap time, a 19.6, so he is half a second faster than the leader, but he is going to have to come into this lap traffic. But right now, Randy, his tires are going to allow him to make these passes like they're nothing.
Yeah, and actually we get a very, very good visual of this. Joe Branch on the new tires, he's actually right behind Tim Holgate going into turn number 3. So we can actually see how big of a difference there is, not only on the lap charts, but just on, actually I think Tim Holgate might have caught the wall.
He's been in dirty air, and with these tires getting older, very well came close. And strategy-wise, I'd pit right now. What is the point of being in this traffic? You can make it here, and oh, don't drift up. Michael Peters on the outside. That shows you as our race leader, Joe Branch, may get his lap back the old-fashioned way. Branch to the inside of our race leader. This is not for the race lead, but Randy, right now, I think everybody's cards should be coming in. Does Holgate pit? Yes, he does.
Yeah, I definitely think Holgate definitely pushed it by not pitting. We have Tim Doyle. Tim Doyle actually stays out, though he's been in cleaner air than Holgate has. I think this is a good strategy move by Doyle so that he can get himself out front. If we happen to get a yellow here as someone is maybe coming off, that'll be advantage Doyle, advantage Walters. So definitely a good choice here, I think, by Doyle and Walters. But they're not going to want to stay out there much longer because really with the, Holgate's 0.3 of a lap faster, so every single lap on old tires. If he gets out there on new tires, he's going to probably be circulating at a second to a second and a half quicker compared to what they're doing on these older tires.
Tim Holgate stop.
Doyle's in.
So Doyle is in, and I think that might have been 1 or 2 laps late. And actually, we have Danley Inch, Marco Aurelio Brazil, TJ Masick all in the pit. So the pits are open. Walters stays out, which, well, right now I don't know, and I don't know if staying out is the right end here. He is going to make his stop. So if he went another 2 laps, I think post-race inspection may have been looking for an enlarged fuel tank as he was on the absolute limit and might have been a little fast there.
Yeah, he certainly was. I think he was trying to run that strategy, hoping to maybe get lucky and catch the yellow, put a couple of these guys a lap down under the yellow, and that would have moved him up, giving him, an advantage over Doyle and Holgate. Granted, he still would have had to stop, and they would have gotten the lap back anyways, but that still would have been the lead for Walters coming to this restart, whereas now, or coming to a restart rather, if it had gone yellow. But now really, I think we're going to see Tim Holgate, because he pit so much earlier, as well with how much quicker he is, I think we're going to see Holgate here with, a 5 to 6 second lead here once everything cycles around.
Oh, I think it's going to be, could potentially, actually, we forgot about the Joe Branch factor. Remember, he pitted about 6-7 laps sooner before the pit stop cycle is finally we cycle around 2.8 seconds, Randy. He gained 4 seconds by pitting early. So now, do you look at this like a road race and you assume this race is going to go green, and the second that you know you can make it to the end, do you make that stop?
I think you do. We've been talking about it for a couple reasons. We've been talking about expecting a fuel run to be about 40, 44 laps or so, somewhere in that realm. And really, that's only, that is going to, be a short stop. Actually, I think maybe a good decision here may have been on this stop, short fill, get yourself new tires and a light tank, run absolutely blistering laps for about 20 laps. Then when you get to within about 40 to go, pit again, get yourself new tires again, and continue to run blistering laps, and do so for longer than your competition will if they just stay out, because everyone has to make one stop anyways. Might as well do so in such a way that you stay light and you stay on new tires for a longer duration than your opponents.
And that goes back to that. The strategy at this track, you have to have a fluid strategy, multiple plays for the same situation. And, well, Holgate now with fresher tires than Branch, remember. Branch now trails 3.9 seconds. Holgate has lapped up to 6, so 6 cars on the lead lap, which actually the battle for 5th between Kinsella and Eek is our closest battle on the racetrack, as Andreas Eek, even before the pit stops, was trying to get around Kinsella as they go side by side into turn 1. Very close, and I don't know how many times Kinsella has fended off Eek on the inside. They're going to go side by side right in front of our leader in 3 and 4, still side by side. And if you're Holgate, you're holding your breath that they don't touch. Holgate was going to want to get around both of them as soon as possible. Going 3 wide here, not advised, and Kinsella's just going to cede the spot.
Yeah, I think Kinsella may have just tagged the wall coming off of 4, and he's lost a lot of ground here to Andres Elk. But yeah, like you said, this is a narrow racetrack, 3 wide, not necessarily doable. Although talking about Kinsella, we were talking about him for a while for his strategy decision. I think his strategy has paid off. Yeah, he just went a lap down, but he's currently P6 on the racetrack, was fighting for P5, although he is currently, Paul Jennings is actually going to be for position. This is, he is starting to fall back, but I do think his strategy has worked out relatively well.
I have to wonder, well, his tires are much older now than everybody else's, so the advantage he got is now the disadvantage. But when he pitted, I wonder now if he's had to trim it out to make that magic lap of 115. So he pitted around lap 70 or so. So for Kinsella, he may need to stretch that fuel 1 or 2 laps to be able to make it to the end.
That definitely might be the case here. And like we said, we're expecting about 40 laps here, I think, on our fuel tank. So really the magic number is about 110 or so. Right now we got a battle for P3. Tim Doyle and Bradley Walters. They've been like this all race long. So currently separated by 2/10. Don't tell Bradley Walters that Dirty Air is bad, because he's willing to just sit there right on the gearbox to Tim Doyle.
And Tim Doyle currently has Marco Aurelio Brazil, who runs 9th. Walter shoots to the outside. Is he going to go to the inside? No, he's going to think about the outside. Very often in oval racing, you don't talk about the high side being the faster way around, but if you can work that high side in 1 and 2, well, one thing here, Randy, you said don't talk about the dirty air, don't tell him. Well, it still affects him, which is why you see him going to the outside. He's trying to find that clean air. He swoops to the inside, and that's what he tried to pull off the previous lap. Picture perfect move, but now Doyle's going to have the little bit of extra banking on the outside. No, he's going to try the crossover, which not going to work with the 2 cars in front of him.
Yeah, I think that if Marco Aurelio Brazil had not been there, I think that movement would have worked. But Tim Doyle there, you saw him, he go to attempt a crossover, and the moment he got to the point where he would have been able to get up to the inside of Bradley Walters, he hit that wall, he hit that wall of dirty air. It's rather a lack of air, not necessarily a wall.
Moment there off of turn 4. Robert Gortz a lap down. Marco Aurelio Brazil and Walters came up on him, and Marco went to the inside as Walters was trying to pass Brazil, and we almost had a 3 wide situation that would have ended in tears for all 3 of them.
Yeah, 3 wide here is not what is considered advisable, even in the most extreme conditions. But hey, these guys are thinking about it. We might just see it yet here as we're within 50 laps to go here. Looking back out front, Tim Holgate running 19.8, got himself a 4-second lead over Joe Branch, and then again it's a 3-second gap back from Joe Branch to Bradley Walters, and that fight with Tim Doyle, of course. Tim Holgate has begun lapping. This is currently 4 cars on the lead lap right now, Paul, and we're starting to get close to that number of people being able to make it to the end on a single tank of gas. I think if I'm here, if I'm running a lap down, I pit somewhere in the realm of lap 110 to lap 115.
Yeah, Kinsella, he's gonna be good now. 44 laps is our estimated maximum run on full mixture, so he's gonna be good. His lap times have dropped. In fact, he was fighting with Andreas Eek earlier. He's now almost half a track behind him. So if I'm Kinsella, I'm going to think about short pitting here and getting fresh tires because that advantage is just so great.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely huge. And if our estimate is 44 laps, he's currently on lap 107, a lap down. So Tim Holgate's on lap 108. He's currently within that window. So I really think we're going to be watching for Kinsella to come down at any point here. The last time he pit was lap something.
Lap something.
Lap something.
Well, we know it
for
was
lap
less than
71.
44.
Lap 71.
So he
about 38, 39 laps ago, he might just be running this tank all the way dry, getting himself to a point where he knows he can make it, and then pitting. But I really think Kinsella in the next 2 to 3 laps will be in the pit lane.
So the window is open as we are watching the 29 cars. We have a big battle here for position on track, and a little bit of contact and TJ Masick into the wall. So you saw on your screen the position that we were watching. Trouble off at turn 4. TJ Masick's race comes to a premature end, and
we cursed it. We cursed it.
So throw all that strategy off the window, and well, I think that was a matter one. Randy, as this run goes on, this car, we talk about the aero push you can get, but you can get a little bit loose, and well, I think that's what happened with Kinsella on the outside, TJ Masick on the inside. Kinsella gets a little bit loose, makes a reaction, Masick makes contact, and oh, if you're Bradley Walters, you just about had your race run for you with none of your own doing.
Yeah, that was very, very close there for Bradley Walters, our current P3 runner. He had actually done a good job by stretching a gap to Tim Doyle of about 1.5 seconds or so. However, we've been talking about strategy this whole time here, Aaron. This yellow, basically take the Etch-a-Sketch, strategies out the window. Everyone can go to the end from here. Everyone's coming down. Everyone's taking tires.
Not so fast. Right now, lap cars cannot pit. So it's time for the ultimate gamble question. You have to pit within 10 laps. If you stay out, you get the wave around. You're back on the lead lap. If you get a yellow, you're back in the game. If you pit now, you're guaranteed to stay a lap down. What do you do?
I think it's tough. I think it depends where you are. If you're somewhere like Paul Jennings, maybe Marco Aurelio Brazil, Michael Peters, I think you have to play the safe game. You have to pit. If you're down towards the tail end of this train of lap cars, Tim Miller, Ryan Heater, maybe Danley Ench, I think you gamble here, and I think you stay out.
Well, right now, only 4 cars were on the lead lap. Andreas Eek is our first car a lap down. He is on the tail end of the lead lap, but looks like he is going to come into the pit. So is anybody going to take the lead lap gamble? That's the question. Marco Aurelio Brazil, he's going to take the risk, which, remember, these drivers are battling for a points championship as well. And the purse here, well, there are prizes. So this is a big gamble. Let's see who also stayed out. Michael Peters, Danley Inch going to take what is going to be the lead lap gamble, which really, I think you got to take it. Either way, you're going to be a lap down. And, well, if you take the gamble, you may go 2 laps down, but that's going to be your only chance to get back on the lead lap.
I think these guys that are pitting right now, they're gambling for another yellow here in about 10 laps. People like Brazil, Michael Peters, the guys that, the guys that pit, Tim Miller, Ryan Heater, rather. getting myself mixed up here. They're obviously hoping for another yellow, and that whole train of cars will end up coming down the pit lane anyways. But the safe strategy here is definitely to pit. The risky one is definitely what we see in these guys here that are currently at the head of the field, in front of the safety car just took.
Yeah, so we have two strategies here on hoping for a yellow. You're correct. Those that did pit that were a lap down, should we get a yellow, say in 15 laps, well, you know Joe Branch is going to pit. You know Bradley Walters is going to pit. You know Tim Doyle's going to pit, which means our leader, Tim Holgate's going to have to pit. So you get to wave around without the risk of having to pit. So, yeah, that is a safe play. I can see how that works, as our drivers now are taking the wave around as we are 1 to green, but as we are now half a lap from green, the question is, does anybody have anything for Tim Holgate?
That's really, really tough. Holgate's quick, and he's stretching this gap by about 0.3 or so per lap. Question to you, Aaron, if we get another yellow, if you're someone who's not a lap down, even if you're up towards the front, if you're a Joe Branch, Bradley Walters, Tim Doyle, if we get another yellow here with about 20 to go, and most everyone else stays out, do you pit?
Oh, you most certainly pit. The 1 second difference, well, really, as the leader, you're a sitting duck. If you pit, everybody stays out. If you stay out, everybody pits. So we'll see how that comes into play. Green flag back in the air. Tim Holgate's going to lead us down. We instantly have a battle for P3. Tim Doyle looks to the inside of Bradley Walters, and he is going to take the spot momentarily. Walters using that progressive banking, only a degree difference, but that's the difference. Bradley Walters is going to maintain the spot as they head into turn 3.
Very well done by Walters and Doyle there. This has really been the first restart we've seen in a while where we haven't had an issue with anyone really getting loose. We got a car on a wall off 4. That's a Haas. It's Robert Gortz. We've seen him tag that turn 4 wall once or twice now today. We got a car pushing up, and actually a car just in front of him pushes up off the turn 2 wall. That's Marco Charlo Brazil. He pushes up off of turn 2, gets the wall there. There's everyone, we're coming down to about 30 laps in this race. Everyone's deciding they don't want to make it to the end.
Yeah,
we got another car off of 4. Michael Peters just hit the wall off of 4.
They're doing everything they can to give those drivers the yellow they need. Of course, when you do take that wave around, the last thing you want to be is the yellow that you so badly, desperately are wanting. Battle for third has calmed down for the moment. Tim Doyle, just stuck behind Walters. Those two really have been nose to tail one way or the other most of this race, but Tim Doyle, I don't know if he's saving his tires just a little bit, but he's fallen off the rear wing of Walters.
Yeah, he certainly has. However, looking at the front, Joe Branch, we've been talking about him with his strategy, and we've also been talking about how quick Holgate's been. Branch has been faster than Holgate. So maybe Holgate's car doesn't work all that great in the early run. Maybe it really comes to life at the end of the race. But right now, advantage Branch. Although that last time by, Holgate was able to stretch over 1/10 of a second there on that green flag lap. But it'll be interesting to see. Joe Branch, I think, if anyone's going to challenge Holgate, it's definitely going to be him, and he's going to have to do it now.
And for Branch, you just want to stay within striking distance. We now have 28 laps to go, and when we get to lap traffic, if you're within a second, you can do something. You can lose that much time in one corner due to lap traffic. So Branch right now, this season, this is probably the most intense laps he's had. He's having to run essentially qualifying style laps in dirty air. Not the easiest of propositions to do.
Oh, it certainly isn't. And Holgate, as quick as he's been, I mean, again, he stretched out about another 1/10 of a second there on Joe Branch. The Holgate, we've been talking about it all race, like, kind of like the young-o of the old days. He's simply been dominant, and he's showing that right now. Looking back down the field, looking at this battle for P3, Walters been able to stretch the gap on Tim Doyle. It'll be interesting to see if that stays that way or if Holgate's ever able to reel him back in. But currently, the gap on the racetrack is about half a second. And, to P5 from Doyle, we talked about them being on old tires. It is a 10-second gap or so to that old group. So they're going to be getting laps shortly.
Well, we do have that battle. Andreas Eek has seemed to be in a battle this entire race. He is trying to defend P8 from Paul Jennings. They are a lap down, although they're running speeds just 2/10 slower than our race leader. So just because they're a lap down, that just shows the pace that Holgate had for so long. But this battle for P8 closest battle we have on the racetrack right now, and Andrea Seek really has gotten a lot of airtime today. This is probably going to be the most intense 150 laps he's had as he goes to the inside. He may have the spot. No, thanks, better of it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely deciding discretion is the better part of valor. Doesn't want to do anything too risky just yet. If you're going to make a gamble, you do it within 10 to go in terms of where you place your car. But back out front, Holgate stretched, currently in an 8/10 of a second lead. Although Bradley Walters, this battle between Joe Branch and Walters has been able to reel in Branch here.
And we are going to have a battle for second before this race is over, as we are closing into as our leader now, is in traffic, and that's going to cost him lots of time. Here comes Branch. He's going to have a run on the outside, but he's going to be pinned in, so our top 3 cars, nose to tail into 3, and that's what I was talking about with the lap traffic. Timing is absolutely everything. Our top 3 now separated by what's going to be less than a second, make it just half a second. As Holgate's still in the dirty air, it goes to the outside. Where does a Brazil go? He goes to the bottom, and race control, I think, is going to have no qualms as we go yellow. Oh, my goodness.
Not sure what brought that yellow out. You know who's happy to see that yellow? Tim Holgate.
And the other Tim...
Oh, Tim Doyle is the yellow.
Yes. And, just like Nathan Bookbinder earlier this race, absolutely nothing he could do. Robert Gortz tagged the wall off of turn 2 and came down. So unfortunately for Doyle, that's about our 3rd driver that's been eliminated for nothing of his own cause. And tough break for Doyle. Such a tough break.
Yeah, it certainly is. And we were talking about this, at the beginning of the race. The walls off of turn 2 and turn 4 are going to get a workout. And Robert Gortz, on those old tires, shuffled up out of the groove. He was running on the exit. He pushed a little wide, got into the gray. The grip simply wasn't there, and he tagged that outside wall, spun it down in front of Tim Doyle. Tim Doyle, rightfully upset by that. But, this top 3 battle, actually, I have a question for you, Aaron. You're kind of the master strategist. 20 laps to go. Well, actually, they are pitting right now. What would you have done?
I think with Holgate's pace, with only 3 cars on the lead lap, I would have done whatever Holgate didn't do. Right now, it's been seen, as of so far, nobody's been able to beat Holgate on speed. So the only way you could beat him is on strategy. So with only 3 cars on the lead lap, I would have stayed out. We are going to have a lot of cars get their lap back, but you're going to be level pegging with them. You're going to have the same tires as they do. So that run was only 15 laps. The only way you were going to beat them was to get in front of them. So I think for Branch and Walters, I would have taken the gamble.
Yeah, I think if I would have been Joe Branch, Walters, Peters, maybe even Danley Inch, I definitely would have stayed out there. I completely agree. Definitely if the race goes green from here on out, you're by no means going to be able to keep with Holgate. But if you get another early yellow and maybe another one, get fortunate, suddenly you're really in the realm that, even if we do get a late run to the green flag, a 4 to 5 lap sprint, even though Holgate will undoubtedly get by you, possibly Branch as well, instead of battling for P5, P6 on the racetrack, you may be fighting for second or third.
Indeed. Well, kind of puzzling here. Marco Aurelio Brazil was in position to get a wave around. He's pitted, so that's going to pin him a lap down. So, questionable move there as, well, lots of drivers going to get the wave around as Andreas Eek, Paul Jennings, Andrew Kinsella, Tim Miller, Ryan Heater, all going to get their lap back. So we went from having 4 cars on the lead lap, now we're going to have 10. So we're going to have a short track shootout here with maybe about a 15-lap shootout.
Yeah, the heats have been run. The race winner of the trophy dash has kissed the trophy girl, and we're going to get ready to go green here. And, Tim Holgate's been quick all night, but I think Joe Branch might just have something for him, Aaron. He's been able, he was looking pacey on that little run we just did. I think he might be able to, maybe make something happen here. We're in that window where you do something risky, where you throw the car up the inside if you get a run going into 1 or into turn 3. I think Joe Branch might just have something for our leader.
Well, we'll be getting the green on lap 135 of 150. The field has been shown the 1 to go. Lights on the pace car are off. if Joe Branch wants to win this race, I think he's going to have to make his move. I think you're right. He is going to have to stick his nose in there, and he's going to have to do it early. First 2 or 3 laps. You can't let that margin build up to 4/10. Lap traffic probably won't be a factor. So for Tim Holgate now, 15 laps, has to nail the restart. Joe Branch, he's going to have to do one better. He's going to have to predict when Holgate's going to go.
Yeah, he certainly is, and that's going to be tough. He almost has to go before Holgate does. It's kind of like drag racing. You don't react to when the light goes green, you react to when those lights turn yellow.
And let's see if he does get the reaction. There goes Holgate. There goes Branch. A little bit of wheel spin for Walters. That's going to pull him back a little bit. Michael Peters in 4th gets a awful restart. Of course, he's on older tires, but right now all eyes up front. Joe Branch, Tim Holgate. Does Holgate, can he fend him off the margin 1 car length? And this is when Branch is going to have to use a draft. The draft for the first 2 laps is your friend. Nose to tail, they go down the line, just less than a car length into turn 1. But I think Randy, that was the lap he needed to do it.
Yeah, I don't think Branch got the restart he nearly needed. He stayed close, but he needed to build an advantage. He needed to have a run going really down into turn 1 so that he could use that run and get up the inside, going into either through the dog leg or maybe up through 3 and 4. He didn't quite get there. It's going to be hard work now for Joe Branch to get to Tim Holgate. Bradley Walters, we saw him not get the greatest restarts of all, but he's not too far off of our leaders. Looking back for the fights for the back, we actually have a 3-way scrap for 5th between Paul Jennings, Danley Inch, and Andres Eek. We've been talking about Eek all night, and now he's up here fighting for the top 5.
Well, that shows that my strategy option of staying out, well, both strategies worked, actually, Randy. Those that stayed out got their lap back, and those that pitted got their lap back. So one of the few times both strategies worked, but an intense battle for 5th, and Danley Inch has been a master of strategy. Side by side, they go into turn 1. This is the battle for 5th, and Andrea Seek, ill-timed move. Paul Jennings going to get to the outside. We go side by side in between the dogleg and turn 3, and contact, and Jennings into the wall.
That's definitely not good. It'll be interesting to see if that brings out a yellow. While that was happening, and a yellow does come out.
So we go yellow, and that's going to give us about a 10-lap, well, sorry, we're at 10 laps to go now, so a 6-lap shootout, and, well, now this is a no-brainer. If you're the leader, you can't pit, but if everybody pits, if you're Holgate, you're in trouble, but I think track position here is going to be too important.
Yeah, I simply don't. Yeah, if you're the leader, this is easy. You don't pit. I think right now, I honestly don't think anyone will pit here. I think it's just too short of a run to really build an advantage on those tires. Let's say Joe Branch decides to come in, nobody else does. He gets shuffled back to 9th place. Yeah, he's going to be able to drive around a few of those guys, but suddenly instead of finishing P2, P3 fighting with Walters and Holgate, he might finish 7th or 6th fighting with the likes of Eek, Kinsella, and Eder if they stay out.
Well, the drivers that got the wave around last time, I think they're going to pit. What do you have to lose? Of course, if everybody stays out, then you're going to lose some positions. But I'm looking at P4 on back, top 5, 6 stay out. Our first taker is Andrew Kinsella. And another thing to note here is we do have, well, only one car that's a lap down. That's Marco Aurelio Brazil. But inside 10 laps ago, they do what's called a down finger restart, lap cars to the rear. So we'll be watching the battle up front. At the end of the race, we'll let you know how Kinsella and Ryan Heater and Tim Miller fare with their fresher tires. But again, this is the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series, which, based in Indianapolis, iAdvance Motorsports is one of the top simulator training facilities in motorsports. Built by IndyCar driver Darren Manning, the iAdvance simulator features a 20-foot long and 8-foot tall screen that wraps 180 degrees around an actual Indy Lights tub. iAdvance uses the latest hardware and software to be as close to the real thing as possible, along with the best pedal assembly, steering wheel, and force feedback money can buy, making it the perfect tool to effectively and accurately train race car drivers and sim racers alike. Visit iAdvanceMotorsports.com to sign up today, and when you do sign up, you can get $20 off by using the promo code ELITE. That's promo code ELITE. So, Randy, we're going to have about 5-6 laps to go when we get the restart. Joe Branch, he saw when Holgate went. If you're Holgate, do you mix up when you go?
Oh, definitely. You don't want to make yourself predictable here to Branch, and really, if I'm Joe Branch, maybe I think Holgate goes early, and expecting that as Holgate, I might not go early. I might wait for Joe Branch to maybe move a little bit, and then check up, and then when he checks up, go. But right now, if I'm Holgate, I need to make sure I get myself a good run and don't give Branch a chance to get up in the inside. Now, if I'm Joe Branch, I have to be extraordinarily aggressive on this restart and do whatever I can to stay with Holgate. However, I think the other thing to watch, Andrew Kinsella, Heater, and Ryan Heater and Tim Miller. We've talked about Kinsella all night being on that alternate strategy, and he's done it to us again. He's currently P7. Everyone in front of him is on older tires. I think he might be able to fight his way up for a top 5 or even 4th place on these tires, Aaron.
The tricky thing about that, not going to be many laps, and when you do have fresher tires and you are going to be a half a second faster, it's difficult not to run over the cars in front of you.
It certainly is. They can almost seem like a speed bump in a parking lot. And just like you don't want to lift for those, Kinsella isn't going to want to lift for these cars in front of him. But he's going to have to. Talking about some big movers, though, in this race, Michael Peters didn't set a qualifying time, started 20th, currently running P4. Danley Inch started 15th, currently running up in the top 5. These are some guys that put in a lot of laps in practice, and it certainly has paid off, and they've managed to get themselves out front. But we're getting ready to go into turn 3, Aaron, and do you think Joe Branch is going to get the jump he needs to?
Well, one thing, if you do want to get that jump, you want to line up off center. We see so often you line up astern. No, you want to line up just maybe half a car width, so if you do go early, you have an escape road. So pace car is in. We're going to start lap 145, and Holgate gets the restart he needs.
We got to spin.
Michael Peters spins out of 4th place, so that is going to change everything. We're going to have one more restart, but Peters, having such a good run, got on it just too hard, and with these cool temperatures, older tires, just got on the power, and that's one thing about where Holgate has been going. He has everything. He can go whenever he wants when the pace car moves, but that puts some cars in the corner, and that's what happened to Peters. His steering wheel just wasn't perfectly straight, spun the tires, around he goes, and he may be able to nurse that thing for a 9th place finish, but, well, a top 5 chance is gone.
I 100% cursed Michael Peters there by mentioning the fact that he moved himself up so strongly through the field. This is going to be a rough 1-lap restart here. And you know what? You know who's brokenhearted to see this restart? The like of Tim Miller, Ryan Heater, and Andrew Kinsella. Yeah, Andrew Kinsella is currently up in the 6th spot. Actually, did he pick up spots on that restart, or did he just get by Michael Peters?
He would have just got by Peters, as Kinsella was 7th up to 6th. So,
I thought he was a little deeper in the field than that. That's my fault. But yeah, that's it. We're gonna have ourselves a 1-lap shootout here. I think, Aaron, maybe 2.
I think we are gonna get that green-white checkered. Which, if by my experience in this car, that's all Branch needs. After 2 laps, if he hasn't taken the lead, he's not going to get it. Now, if you're Bradley Walters, if you do get a restart and Branch gets a good restart, do you contend for 2nd? Or if it looks like Branch is going to have a chance at the win, do you let the 2 of them fight it out and try to make that ill-advised 3-wide pass?
I think if I'm Bradley Walters, what I do here depends on what Joe Branch does. If Joe Branch doesn't get the jump he needs, I definitely need to be aggressive here on Joe Branch. However, if Joe Branch gets the jump he needs, I want to just sit here, I want to defend 3rd place, and I let them race each other hard, maybe get themselves into trouble, and instead of fighting Joe Branch for, and potentially getting 2nd at best, let them make a mistake. Maybe I win the race off that alone.
Well, you mentioned my favorite restart strategy. You maintain a steady pace. That's one of the biggest things as a leader. You maintain a steady pace, but you're watching your mirror. And when you see 2nd place come up, you know they're going to have to slow down for you. That's when you punch it. But, well, Joe Branch has seen that 3 times now, and very much like a full count in baseball that keeps getting fouled off. Joe Branch, once again, is going to get another chance to swing away for the lead for Holgate. So Holgate has gone pretty much the same place each time. This is like one of those things that he knows, that Branch knows that he's not going to do it again, but since he knows that he knows, well, do you do it again?
Yeah, you mentioned baseball here. I think Holgate's definitely the pitcher, and if I'm Tim Holgate here on this restart, I throw the knuckleball and try to make Joe Branch just whiff on it. I go a little bit. I think I'm going to go late here if I'm Tim Holgate, because Tim Holgate really this whole race has gone very, very early. I don't think it has to be very, really late. Once that pace car starts pulling off, just go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and on 3 go. Whereas generally this whole race, he's gone basically the moment that pace car peels off.
Well, we did not get the 1 to go this time. We are on lap 148. We should get it, hopefully, next time by. If we don't get it next time by, this race will be over. But I think we will get the 1 to green, which will give us not a green-white checkered, or a green... Well, we will have a green and white together. So a 1-lap shootout upcoming, and... well, all bets are off. Every position up for grabs. You don't have anything. The drivers with fresh tires, they only have 1 mile to make it happen. So,
yeah, I was just going to say, this is going to be a hectic 1 mile to commentate, because we have to watch the battle between Joe Branch, Holgate, and Walters, but we also have to watch the likes of Kinsella, Heater, and Miller, see what they're able to do on those new tires.
So, all eyes up front, and then we will sort through
all
whatever
eyes everywhere.
mayhem
all eyes everywhere.
happens afterwards. So, big thing. Do we get the 1 to go? Pace car lights do indeed turn off. The 1-lap shootout is about to commence, and as a driver, you want to be up front. You want to have a 5-second lead when the white flag comes out. You don't want to have a restart with a whole field of contenders behind you that want your position. Every position going to be contended. Nobody's going to give an inch, no quarter. This is going to be an absolute... this mile is going to be just hectic.
Yeah, we've been talking this whole race about strategy and basically outthinking your opponents. Here, this is just a brawl. And in some ways, this 1-lap restart is the worst thing for Holgate, because if Joe Branch gets a jump, he's there. But at the same time, if Holgate gets himself to a good start, guess what? Joe Branch doesn't have time to recover.
9 cars on the lead lap. So if anybody tries a jump, they're going to be relegated. Holgate, slow does he go? He goes at the same spot yet again, and Branch gonna fall off 3 car lengths. That may be the race. Of course, the tires are cool for 1 lap. The draft is your friend for this lap, but being behind by 4 car lengths might not be enough.
We got a spin. Kinsilla's spinning through 1 and 2.
So we are gonna stay green. The white flag is out. We are gonna have the battle for the win as Branch sticks it to the inside. Holgate goes high. They almost touch off the 4, but Holgate's gonna maintain the win. Incredible that Branch was able to throw that car to the inside and make it stick, not wash up. An incredible finish, and that was very heads up by Holgate not to turn in, because had he turned in, there would have been contact. He used the outside banking to get the run off the corner, and Branch did what he needed to do. Holgate did what he needed to do. So, wow, what a mile. And the big loser there obviously is Kinsella.
And I believe Ryan Heater, who he got into, actually was upside down coming off of 2. That was, definitely unfortunate for them. I think Tim Miller, though, managed to move himself up 2 spots on that restart. Definitely good for him. That was a pretty exciting last lap restart there.
So, well,
a lot of interesting things happened.
We ended the race much like we began it, with the car touching the apron, but because the white flag was out, the yellow flag was not triggered, which allowed Branch to get all alongside. He almost had him cleared, just not quite, but a great finish to this race, which will take us to our finishing results. Winning the race, 150 laps in 1 hour, 11 minutes. Tim Holgate is your race winner here tonight. Joe Branch came so close to winning it. He is second. Bradley Walters, who was our pole sitter, he's going to finish third. Coming in fourth, another great strategy run. We saw him do this at Homestead. Danley Inch is going to finish fourth. Andreas Eek, who I think is going to get our action mover of the race constantly in traffic, he's going to finish fifth. Tim Miller 6th, Andrew Kinsella still going to finish 7th, and Ryan Heater going with 8th. Finishing 9th, Marco Aurelio Brazil never could get his lap back. Michael Peters brought out our final caution. He's going to finish 10th. And the rest of the finishers, Paul Jennings, actually was our final yellow, sorry. He's going to finish 11th, also 3 laps down. All other cars out of the race. Of course, Tim Doyle, heartbreak for him. He's going to finish 12th. Gordston, Masick, Bookbinder, Goke, Anders, Espity, and Flanagan going to run out your race field. So, Randy, this race had some single file racing, but that mid-pack stuff was absolutely intense stuff to watch.
Yeah, Tim Holgate on those long green flags rungs. I don't want to be mean to Joe Branch or Bradley Walters or Tim Doyle, but Holgate made it look easy out there out front. Joe Branch on that last restart, like you said, he did what he needed to do, just wasn't quite close enough to make it work. Bradley Walters as well. If Joe Branch would have made a mistake, he probably would have taken both himself out as well as Holgate, and Bradley Walters would have come away with that race win just on incidents alone. A crazy race here at Phoenix. We did the whole thing without any commercials. Will Vincent might just be upset at us, Aaron.
Yep, I'm sure Will Vincent is tuning in, which he will be back for the next event of the iAdvance Indy Elite Series. Tim Holgate did celebrate by not really doing a Polish victory lap. He did his typical doing the victory lap, going the right way in reverse, which, trivia note, the Polish victory lap by Alan Quickie was first ran here at Phoenix Speedway. We will get interviews here in a moment. Let's see who we have as we will start the interview process. But before that, Randy, we really almost outthought ourselves strategy-wise, and in the end, we had 2 different strategies, but everybody got morphed into the same strategy.
Yeah, we saw that with those late yellows. That late yellow right around, I believe, lap 110, lap 115. That kind of put everyone on the same thing, and we would have gotten an interesting little bit of tidbit there with a 7 to 8 lap run if Michael Peters hadn't spun on that yellow. We could have seen those guys that decided to pit really try to charge through the field through that last 5 or 6 laps, and unfortunately that got kind of robbed from us. But oh well, we'll get over it. We're big boys. But yeah, there was a lot of overthinking there on the sake of on the sake of this race, and everyone was kind of thinking it. And in my opinion, that's good to see. It made for a very, very interesting race here.
Well, we are just about to talk to Tim Holgate. So here we go. Tim Holgate, winner here in the Phoenix 150. And, let's just go right to the end. Joe Branch went to the inside. He almost had it. How nerve-wracking is a one-lap shootout?
Oh, it's definitely you want to have a big gap when you're finishing a race, and to have to start and do it on a restart like that. Usually, at a track like this where it's difficult to pass, it's usually not too bad. I was trying to just keep his. I mean, he's my teammate, so I was trying to keep his air clean so that he wasn't getting threatened by Brad right behind him. And I guess I left the door a little bit too wide, but I was pretty confident I could keep on the throttle on the way out, so I wasn't too worried about it.
Lap traffic did play a factor there in the middle part of the race, and in setting up a car, you do want a car that is fast and clean air, but with traffic here, do you have to set up the car to not only be fast by yourself, but to be prepared for the traffic that you are going to come across?
Yeah, that's something that I always end up doing, depending on where we're at in qualifying and where we're at in restarts, is figure out how much front wing you want to run initially. Total downforce is something you got to decide too, but it's harder to change that without losing time in the pits and without potentially compromising the setup as it is.
Well, it had a long green flag run there. Was tire fall off? We noted your car really had the fastest pace throughout the entire run. Was your tire fall off? Was that your key in the middle sector of this race?
I ended up putting more wing on. I think after our long stint, because I didn't actually think the tire fall off was that good. If we were the best out there, then it's good to know that everybody else was suffering from it too. I was thinking maybe we were a little bit too trimmed out, because I think we fell off maybe 3 or 4 tenths at the end of the run. Mostly it was a problem in traffic when your tires are worn and you're coming up on lap traffic. It's hard to get by, and it's hard for them to. They're not going to let you by if you don't get close, and it's difficult to get close. So that was kind of challenging.
Well, you're now 3 for 4 here in the series. Who would you like to thank?
I definitely want to thank Butter, the primary sponsor, for always keeping me comfortable or doing these races. It's an awesome rig. So anybody who's looking for a racing rig, definitely check them out. I got to thank the guys at Snake Pit Racing. We had a great time working on a setup this week.
Well, that is Tim Holgate, your race winner here this evening, and looked to be a runaway early, but in the end, it was intense final mile. So, congrats to Tim Holgate. So, next up, I believe we will have Joe Branch here in just a second. So, now Randy is standing by with Joe Branch.
How's it going, Joe? Managed to come home a strong P2 today. We were talking about it, both the several restarts we were thinking about getting. Holgate was quick on the runs, and we thought that the only chance he really had was on the restart. So, what do you think made Tim so quick today?
Tim was flying. He was able to run a little less downforce than I'd say about everybody else on the team. So my only chance was in the short, either right on the restart or over the long run. I had a good strategy going there for a while when I pitted early, and I thought it was going to work out. I was flying on lighter fuel, and then a caution came out and kind of put everybody back on the same playing field. But it was a fun race, tough track, but it was fun.
Now we were talking about that there in the late stages, and really when before we had that one restart basically get waved off after the car spun coming to the green. We actually had a few guys in the back come in and take tires for that last for what we would have gotten that last 6 to 7 lap run. Do you think they might have made a good decision there? Or do you think they mostly would have been a non-factor?
No, I didn't know who came in, but I knew if they were in the back, they had a chance to get up to us. But that's the gamble with that strategy. You never know. A caution comes out and you lose that position you gave up. So I've been on that end far too many times.
Now we saw there on the last lap as you went down into turn 3. There was Tim. You kind of shoved it up in the inside there. Was for the last mile here was basically the fact your teammates basically a non-factor there, and you just wanted that race win.
Yeah, I wanted to get the win. I didn't want to do anything stupid, but we have a running joke on our team about not lifting, so I wasn't going to lift.
That's always good to hear, Joe. Definitely good to see people stay aggressive even around people that they should be nice with, or should play nice with regardless. Congratulations on the P2, Joe. Anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my teammates. Tim and Niles always do a heck of a job on the setup. Tim Doyle and I've been racing, seems like wheel to wheel in this series every race, so that's always fun. And then thanks to iAdvanced Motorsports for helping me put on a series and sponsoring my car.
Thank you for that, Joe. Congrats again for P2. And Aaron, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Definitely a great 1-2, incredible final mile. Next up, I believe we are going to talk to Dan Lee Inch. We'll get him in here. Dan, once again, strategy worked to your favor. 4th place from a 15th starting place. I think this is the second time this season you've had a race like that. How'd you do it?
Well, I got lucky. That's about all you can say about it. I got the wave around on the third to last yellow with about 30 to go, and then I stayed out. I had a little over half a tank, so I stayed out. Got the yellow when I needed it with about 13 to go, and managed to get myself up in position to make a run for it toward the end there, and really just got very, very fortunate.
Yeah, that yellow that you mentioned, half the cars a lap down pitted, half the cars stayed out and took the wave around. You took the wave around, which in the end, everybody got their lap back. But was that the deciding factor for you that, well, if you pit, you're going to go a lap down, but if you stay out, really at that moment in time, that's the only way you are going to stay on the lead lap?
Right. Yeah. You can settle for 11th or 12th, or you can hope for the best. And I hoped for the best and just went for it, and it all worked out fine for me.
That's a strategy I definitely like going for it. With your 4th place finish, who do you like to thank here this evening?
Well, first off, we got to thank iAdvanced Motorsports for putting this whole thing on, man. We are so grateful to them for sponsoring this event and all the events throughout the year. They do a great job. And sure want to say thanks to them. I want to thank Michael Peters for putting my livery together this year. He's the one that makes my car look so nice for the Comets and for Racing for Christ. Also, I want to give a shout out to our team leader, Donald Stroud. He's gone through some surgery, had to miss today's race, but everything's looking great. He came through the surgery with fine colors, and just want to praise the Lord for that one and welcome Donald to speedy recovery. And also, I want to thank you guys, RaceSpot, for putting this on too. We sure enjoy watching these on the replay after we get done running the race ourselves, and you guys do a great job, and we sure do thank you.
Oh, thank you. And our thoughts will definitely be with Donald. And that's Dan Lee Inch finishing fourth in another incredible drive through the field. And I believe next up for our final interview will be Randy with Tim Miller as we get Tim Miller in here.
Yeah, I'm stood by here with Tim, Aaron, and Tim came home in a strong sixth place position. If I remember correctly, you were in that last group that pit on that restart we would have gotten with 6 to 7 to go, and you were one of the first couple cars that took tires. Do you think if that race had gone green, do you think you would have been able to work your way up towards the front a bit?
Now, I might have got one or two there, but no, I should have got tires that last stop, but I wasn't thinking. I was thinking about Michael Peters behind me back there, so I kept going.
Yeah, well, luckily for you, I suppose, Michael Peters kind of took himself out of contention. We saw him actually spin with those old tires coming to that restart. How scary were those old tires in general on the restarts here, and how big was the disadvantage?
Well, I was starting pretty slow early in the race, but then I was getting more confidence as far as going, and I never had any problem after that.
You started in P13 today, managed to come home in a strong P6. How'd you manage to work your way through the field?
Now I don't know. I just kept going. Before I go, I want to say Niles. I apologize to Niles Anders on our first pit stop. My setup was not good for going into the pits, and I was scared that I would lock it up. And I was a little slow. I think I held him up a little bit, and then I got turned around in the pits. It might have been from him. I don't know, but I just want to apologize. I was a little slow there.
Yeah, we actually did see that incident early on in the race, and you were basically faced the wrong way in the pit box, something we see occasionally in real life. Not something we're used to seeing here in the sim, though, Tim, but congratulations on the strong P6 here. Any other shout-outs or anyone else you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I'd like to thank, as always, my sponsor, Chicago's Pizza, and then my team, RFC. I don't know what Dan just said, but I think he mentioned something. Wayne Stroud, our leader, just thoughts to him. And just thanks to iAdvance Motorsports and Recmotech, as always, and you guys on the broadcast. It's excellent.
Oh, you give us too much credit. It's not that hard, Tim. But thank you anyways. Congrats again for the strong P6. And I believe now Aaron's over sitting with Andrew Kinsella.
Yes, Andrew Kinsella had a good run going. You might have been you and Andrea Seek were battling for most of the race. Was the race? Was there a lot of give and take out there?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good give and take. Andreas is a very clean driver for the most part. I think that he and I both gave each other a lot of space. I was on a bit of a different tire strategy for a lot of the race. I got out of sequence early, and because of that, I was hoping to keep him behind me, but he did manage to find his way past me, and I just couldn't keep up on the old tires. But with the new ones, I was hoping to get back beyond him.
Well, yeah, you do mention the other strategy. Had the race played out green the entire way, were you good, or were you going to have to make one more stop than anyone else?
So I would have had to have made the same number of stops. I would have had to have a longer last stint than everyone else, but I would have been good to go, at least by my calculations, but it would have been close.
Last lap didn't exactly go as planned. What happened?
No, and I gotta apologize to Ryan Heater for that one. I had actually been warming up my tires under caution, and caught the wall with my right side, and it seemed good to go under caution. But then when I got into turn one, it just snapped around on me. So collected Ryan, and big apologies to him on that one because he had a good run going as well, and was looking to finish on the lead lap. So big apologies to him on that one.
Well, despite the spin, still 7th place. Anybody want to give a quick shout out to?
I just want to give a shout out to the Power Slide Motorsports boys, giving me a competitive car as always, and looking to build on it for next time.
Oh, that's Andrew Kinsella, 7th place finish. And Randy, as we close it out, don't really want to say this was a typical Phoenix race. We had a lot of racing, a lot of side-by-side action, and well, with the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series, you're not expecting anything less.
Oh, certainly not. It was an extraordinarily clean race. We only saw a couple yellows, and most of those yellows were down to really just the sort of mistakes that Phoenix generates. Coming up off of turn 2, we saw that late race incident between Tim Doyle and I can't remember the car it was that got into the wall, as well as we saw the same thing a couple times coming off of turn 3 and 4. Phoenix can get narrow. It can be rough to run, and I think for these guys to keep this race as clean as they did was really a testament to the driving standards and skill you see in this series.
And the IndyCar series just seems to get better and better and better. This has been the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series from Phoenix. I'm Aaron Likens with Randy Cheneth, and also, you don't see him, but he puts in a lot of work as our producer and director, Hugo Louise. It's been a great race here this evening on RaceBot and iRacing Live. We will see you next time. Goodbye.